him what the Director of Innovation District Development meant. And he goes, well, that's what I'm going to talk about. So, like I said, Jarrod oversees a lot of the capital planning process and construction at OSU Cascades, and I was really interested in this. He was in the private sector, and he did semiconductor process production, correct?
That's right.
And then he has an associate's degree in electronics engineering and a bachelor's in construction management. So Jarrod, you're on up. And I have my little black and orange pen. Susan, I need more of these.
Well, thank you all. This is a great room. It's amazing to see communities come together like this. And I mean, I've never been to a Kiwanis meeting. This is really exciting to see groups come together and kind of meet each other and support each other. So it's excellent being part of it. Thank you for having me here. So my role has changed a little bit over time. I've been with OSU for about 8 years, almost 8 years now. So right now I do all the facilities, operations, and then also the campus planning and development. So that includes the construction, kind of moved around a bit. But here to explain a little bit of what we've been doing out at OSU Cascades. So I'll kind of try to make this A, quick, and then B, explain kind of broadly what we're doing, where we are today, and kind of where things are going. Can everybody hear me okay?
No.
I'll speak up a little bit higher.
With that air blowing, it's hard to hear in the back of the room.
Good, because I can project. I just don't want it to be too loud for anybody. So OSU Cascades really started back in the 80s with Central Oregon pushing for some support for a 4-year institution. And so we like to look at that overall long-term history when we're talking about the Cascades campus. In about 1999, there was a significant push from Central Oregon to the legislature to drive for a presence of higher education institution in Central Oregon. And so that's where you really started to see a partnership between COCC and OSU and U of O start to develop and start to teach classes on actually in a one-room schoolhouse that is now at Jimmy John's on the north side of Bend. Taught a couple classes there, and then moved over to the COCC campus. Back then, it was a partnership between U of O and OSU, and approximately 2012, there was kind of a separation there where those degrees were confusing for people, having both U of O and OSU kind of working out of one area, and so the legislature and the Higher Education Coordinating Commission asked OSU and U of O to kind of compete for who would drive this long-term university. And OSU kind of won that competition. And so U of O pulled out, and then OSU really focused our efforts here. Doubled down on support with Central Oregon Community College. And then in 2016, we opened the first buildings on the new campus. Over at the southwest side of Bend. That was on about a 10-acre campus at that time, which was immediately adjacent to the 118 acres that we would ultimately purchase and negotiate for. So right now it's about 128 acres, and we're working through building out the campus that can support up to 5,000 students. Is that okay? Is that loud enough? So right now we're about 1,400 students, plus or minus. So average class sizes are about 20, so we try to talk about that large institution education. We are an OSU degree, but relatively small, almost like a private institution feel. So smaller class sizes. One of the largest pieces of feedback we get from students who graduate is they love their professors, their instructors, and the relationship and the specific focus they got from those instructors. A good number of our students are from in Oregon and also from Central Oregon. So that's really, we feel, speaks to that need that Central Oregon pushed legislatures for to try and get a university here. I could spend forever on stats like this. We've had about 6,000 graduates overall since we opened. So looking at the master plan, the buildings in black that you see here are existing today. The buildings in orange are kind of what we're working on for the next 5 to 7 years or so. Each of these other sites are buildings that we can build sometime on the campus over the next 40, 50 years. Hopefully I retire and maybe we're halfway built out by then. We don't expect to be at 5,000 students in the next 10 years or so. This is a slow growth over time. We are trying to bring more programs to the campus and aligning our programs with some of the economic focuses of Central Oregon to make sure we're supporting businesses and the growth of Central Oregon and helping to keep young people and students here in the area. So I often like to show this as a progression of the campus development. So when we first opened, we had this little area in the southeast corner of our 128-acre campus. We then purchased the larger area that you kind of see colored in there. And so that's like 72 acres of the Deschutes County solid waste construction and demolition landfill, and about 48 acres of pumice mine. And so those are two blighted sites that in the southwest corner of Bend, right on the way up to Mount Bachelor, hundreds of thousands of people have passed by there. A lot of folks in the nearby neighborhoods never really knew what was on this site or what was there. And so we've been working to use the issues on both of those sites to fix both of those sites. So essentially, you've got a giant hole in the ground in a pumice mine, and you've got a big pile of stuff with landfill. And so we're able to move all that around on campus while essentially making more buildable land and developing that land in a way that it can be useful for the campus and for the overall area. You can stop me anytime for questions. Like this isn't like a preset presentation or anything. So
Like you just passed the pumice mine, be good trade school opportunity.
yeah, so we have interns working with our contractors who are OSU interns from some of our programs. And we try to incorporate young people into the process of what we're doing as much as we can. So this is a video. When we do these remediation projects periodically, so we started off with one that's remediated about 2 acres of landfill. It's kind of our proof of concept. And then we just finished one that remediated about 24 acres of landfill. And we're about to start on our third project. We expect to have a shovel in the ground probably Q4 of this year, maybe Q1, Q2 of next year. And so when we do one of those projects, this is like a 30-second video that shows what some of that looks like. So I'll play that.
This is a video about dirt. Why should we care about dirt? For OSU's Bend campus to grow, we need solid soil under the foundation. To reach solid soil, we need to remove thousands of tons of waste and debris from the demolition landfill that made this area unusable for decades. On a typical day, there are 8 excavators, 6 haul trucks, 2 compactors, 2 dozers, 2 water trucks, a loader, and a motor grader working on campus. Excavators dig down until they reach clean, untouched soil, which is inspected by a geotechnical engineer and tested by an environmental engineer. The waste and debris are processed on OSU Cascades land, a short 3/4 mile drive away. After tires and metal have been separated for shredding and recycling, the material passes through a sorting machine that separates the waste from reusable soil. To keep trucks off the roads, reducing road congestion and the carbon footprint of the project, the waste is re-landfilled on campus using modern techniques. Reclaimed soil is trucked down to the base of the former pumice mine to support the future heart of campus.
She just said so much more that would take me forever to explain. The heart of this is we are digging out the landfill from where it's at, separating that into reusable soil, and then re-landfilling the waste on our campus, taking what was 72 acres of previously unusable area in the landfill and reducing it down to about 24 acres, 28 acres, that we can then build passive uses on top of, like soccer fields, football fields, baseball fields, parking, and solar. And so we will be able to use all of the land ultimately. So taking like 128 acres that was unusable before and making it essentially a community asset. So we're doing that at a price point that is at or below the market rate for the purchase of land in Bend and to develop that land in Bend. So we're even doing it at a price point that is cost effective. Additionally, as we excavate out that waste is hot. It is a lot, what makes up that waste is a demolition and construction landfill. And so you go back to the 1950s or so, they dug all the pumice out of those holes. They had giant holes in the ground. Somebody said, what should we do with these? Somebody said, let's throw our waste in there. And so then they filled them up with boiler ash from the mills, drop off from the mills, the extra chunks of wood that were too long, essentially. And then also sawdust. There's a considerable amount of sawdust in those landfills. The mills themselves, as they were torn down from old mill, were put into this landfill. And so with a lot of organic material, it is doing the same thing it does in your backyard. It's composting essentially in the landfill, causing heat. So that compost pile in your backyard gets hot. Same thing happens here. It gets hot. So it's composting up to about 500 degrees, somewhere in that range. And then past 500 degrees, it becomes pyrolysis. So that's anaerobic burning, essentially. And so as we excavate this soil out, you can see it's actually quite hot.
216 degrees.
And so through the years, we've had some situations where the fire department would be called out because people would see steam coming off the landfill, and or there would actually be fires out there periodically. And so as we're excavating this waste out, we've worked with some landfill fire consultants to make sure we're doing it safely. We're also monitoring the air around the area to make sure that we're going to have particulate getting out to the community. And all of this happens on our campus and stays on our campus, so it's not clogging up the local roads around the area. A lot of folks kind of come by and they go, holy cow, what did they change there? I didn't even realize they were doing anything. And so, to get to the next slide, all of that hot waste is sitting right next to tires. So Central Oregon has a long history of tires, and so as we excavated out this waste, we expected to find about 8,000 cubic yards of tires. We came across 60,000 cubic yards of tires. And so most community members don't realize that we had, that maybe this risk existed a mile and a half outside of downtown Bend. And even today, I mean, as we're doing this work, so we are excavating out those tires, shredding them properly. If you think about a tire and think about that pile, there's a lot of air spaces in there, a lot of voids. When you get that hot, and it happens over time, especially when you have that composting material next to it, you end up with an underground tire fire. And when those happen, which they happen across the country, they are very hard to put out. It's something that just kind of makes a lot of smoke, and the best thing anybody can typically do is put a lot of dirt on top of it to slow it down. They don't typically excavate them out, and they don't typically put them out. So the risk that existed here was pretty dramatic, and I think most folks don't really catch on to that. So we excavated those tires out, shred the tires down to meet EPA and DEQ requirements, re-landfill them properly, basically buried in dirt with, it's like a dirt cake, essentially. So you have 5 feet of soil, 5 feet of soil with the tires in it, and then another 5 feet of soil. So air can't get into it, and also it avoids the ability for it to combust.
Any of those tires, residue, get put into materials that they put on the roads, or that they make tracks out of, that sort of thing?
The short answer is yes. The long, complicated answer is it is not cost effective to do so, and they've already broken down enough that a lot of the companies who would typically do that don't want them anymore because they're kind of inconsistent. And so we did look at that. So we re-landfilled those, and you can kind of see that separation process happening here. So looking at sustainability, we're trying to build this campus in a way that is sustainable for the long term, reduces overall maintenance and operations costs, and reduces our utility costs. And so as we're building the campus, we looked at what are the most effective and useful ways to make a sustainable campus. So the number one thing that rose to the top was to make a system that matches what exists already at 7th Mountain. A lot of folks on their way up to the mountain past the 7th Mountain Resort. So they've got a system similar to this. So we're drawing water from the aquifer about 500 feet below the campus. We are then extracting about 5 degrees of temperature off of that water. It comes out at about 50 degrees all year long. So we're able to extract about 5 degrees off of that water in the wintertime and heat our buildings with that. In the summertime, we're able to put about 5 degrees into that water and cool our buildings with that. That makes us about 6 to 7 times more efficient than anything we can do with natural gas for heating, and makes us about half the cost of heating with natural gas, and makes us about a quarter of the cost of cooling with just like kind of typical air conditioning. So that is how we cool 2 of our buildings on campus. The other 3 were built before we started this process, and so they will be retrofitted down the line. Additional buildings will come on and use this system. So this gets to kind of the next phase of development that we're working on. It'll be right in the center of campus here. There's currently a landfill there with about 260,000 cubic yards of waste. So again, starting kind of the next, over the next 6 to 8 months, we will start to excavate that waste out, make a big hole in the ground that goes about 60 feet down, and then fill that hole back up with soil. Again, reusing only components and materials that we have on our campus already. So we're not trucking in giant piles of soil, we're not trucking out large quantities of waste. We're just moving everything around. And we are also getting ready to put solar on all of our buildings right now on the campus so that we can reduce our electricity bill down to almost 0. I think that I went through just all my slides. So this is, these are the 2 buildings that will be built next. The Shrek, it's kind of a fun name. The Student Health and Recreation Center. One of the things that we hear most from students as they come and look at the campus is, where's the health or the recreation center? It's like one of the main things students look at when they go to any campus. So we feel like once we add this, we'll definitely see a little bit stronger growth in our overall enrollment. That enrollment growth is really critical to making sure the campus can stay alive. As you see with SOU and Eastern Oregon University, we're approaching what a lot of folks in the higher ed area kind of call the enrollment cliff. Or there's essentially around 2008, there was a drop in births in the United States, and so we're seeing that come to the number of folks who are coming to campus right now. And so that's kind of a short answer. So like all of higher ed is seeing this kind of drop that's likely to come. Yeah.
When is the timeline for this?
So we need to do that remediation project first to make that land clean and developable or buildable. We expect that to start, like I said, the next 6 to 8 months, be wrapped up by end of 27, mid 28, and then construction on the building to the right would start then, opening around end of 29 or 30.
Second question.
Yeah.
Unrelated to that, maybe about student life. I mean, do you ever see sports being added at this campus?
Yeah, so with these next projects, we'll be able to add our first fields, again, on top of that landfill area. We have to kind of go through these projects, build that future landfill area, and then we can put the recreation on top of it. So we'll start off with a field that can actually combine probably soccer and a couple other things. We are seeing some, let's see here, previously we've always talked about only doing intramural sports, kind of recreational sports for students. We've seen a lot of interest, and there's also some enrollment support that can come from doing some Division III sports. So we will never be kind of the main campus with like large sports, but we might be able to do some Division III and compete locally.
That's amazing.
So yeah, the Health and Recreation Center is our next building. The next residence hall would follow. We think that's probably 2032, 2035 kind of time frame. And then the Innovation District. So Elizabeth asked me, what is the Innovation District? So Oregon State University and kind of Oregon universities overall I would say, are playing a bit of catch up to a national trend in higher education. So large research universities have typically across the country, if you've ever been back to the Midwest or back to the East Coast, there's like the research triangle that's formed by 3 universities around kind of North Carolina area. There's University of Illinois, Champaign, Urbana. There's a number of large universities back east that had research parks. Research parks over time slowly have turned into innovation districts. The idea, or the difference between the two, is research parks were typically something where somebody showed up at 8 in the morning, a researcher and or their team would work on things, then they'd leave at 5 p.m. and go home. And there wasn't a lot of cross-discipline interaction between different folks doing things there. A lot of universities have moved something more towards an innovation district model, where they're bringing other activities into that research park. So 1, they're bringing housing in, 2, they're bringing food and beverage and commercial retail, so that these become small communities where folks live and actively recreate and hang out, and they're extending the number of hours that folks are out there, and they're seeing cross-discipline interaction between folks maybe doing medical research and an engineer who has a background in microcircuitry. And then you see these 2 things be able to start to come together in a powerful way. The other thing that a lot of higher education across the country realized is they were doing a lot of basic research, but that wasn't always translating to the marketplace or to economic development for the region. So innovation districts were typically a way for public institutions to interact with the private sector, bringing maybe a semiconductor manufacturing company onto the campus to coexist with the research that's happening on the campus, or maybe in some cases it's cybersecurity. Texas has a large cybersecurity campus. So folks who are youngsters who are getting their degrees in computer science and focusing on cybersecurity are then working alongside the private sector in that sector and learning things, working as interns so that they are ready to be hired in the field. And so the innovation district here that we're working on would have some housing in ID2 and some mixed-use commercial, meaning essentially private sector companies on our campus in the innovation district. So this is actually right on our campus. My office is in the building that you see on the far right-hand side of this. OSU would actually have space in this building as well, so we would be teaching classes in the same building where private sector companies are located and doing some of their research.
With the new emphasis on the trades, is there anything related to OSU and maybe Central Oregon Community College going forward that we'll see more collaboration there?
I would think it would be hard to argue that it's not going to happen. I would say that so much of that is kind of new that it hasn't gotten a chance to kind of have legs and move forward very quickly yet, and so I just haven't seen it really come to fruition yet. Yeah, I think there's a lot of focus, even at OSU, on things like credentials, and I think folks typically think of the university where you get your bachelor's or your associates or so on, right? And so the university has tried to break that down to credentials, where they're a smaller certification, and you can stack those certifications up over time, maybe coming back to the university 2 or 3 times, and then that becoming a degree of a sort, if that's what somebody wanted. Sorry.
Innovation Center is really interesting. Sheffield, England, it's got the big innovation center. It's got Bruce working with OSU and others at the airport. But it's got private business coming down. So what they develop, and they the engineers for it, but the kids who are in trades are constantly designed to do what they want to do. So I think it's a really good approach to how we're doing this, doing the basic research. We've done stuff like this for a number of years.
Yep. Absolutely right. Yeah, and actually, I'd say internationally, Asia's probably pretty far ahead of us. I mean, they are building 5,000-acre campuses with a university co-located with private sector companies around the outside of them. I think it's been a little bit slower to come to fruition here. It's been happening in the United States for the past, like I said, 20 to 40 years, depending on what you think about, but it's definitely been taking off over the past 10 to 20. That's it.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate it. I usually do a little social media photo, and I have to confess I do root for OSU unless they're playing the Ducks. So. Here we go. Thanks for being here. Nice to meet you.
Absolutely. I'm always happy to answer questions, so it's an exciting